Yo, what's good everyone? Raiden's getting a rerun, and obviously that means Kujou Sara's getting one too, with the pair being tied together like Tepe is with the Afterlife. So while she's better now, and we'll get onto that in a minute, when she released, people were underwhelmed with her for several reasons. She's an attack buffer with a little bit of sub DPS potential. Obviously the attack buff inside of a kit drew comparisons to Bennett, which is understandable in my opinion. At level 13, Bennett's ult gives a 119% attack buff, while Sara's skill at level 13 gives 91%. Sara's buff only lasts 6 seconds while Bennett's ult lasts 12. Bennett can also sustain a team by himself while Sara instead contributes damage, but you have to balance out a crit and attack substats with energy recharge. Sara would also need an emblem set in order to deal that damage, while Bennett could simply hold Noblesse and buff the team even more. Luckily for us, she has improved since she launched with the release of newer units, so let's look at these buffs. In order to understand how newer units have improved her, we first need to look at exactly what she does. At C0, you press a skill and it gives her a feather. You then use a fully charged shot, and wherever the arrow lands will explode shortly after, dealing an instance of damage to enemies in the AoE and giving an attack buff to the active character in the AoE. This attack buff scales off Sara's base attack and not her overall attack, which means there are two ways to make the buff bigger. Firstly, level her up to increase her own base attack. Secondly, use a weapon with a high base attack. For example, at level 90, Sacrificial Bow gives 565 base attack. Favonius Warbow gives 454. Favonius Warbow has more energy recharge and a better passive, but the attack buff will be lower. At C2, you don't have to aim a charged shot. You just press a skill and the effect will trigger shortly after, giving you enough time to switch into whichever character you want to receive the attack buff. Her burst deals several instances of AoE electro damage and also triggers the buff from a skill again. With the buff lasting 6 seconds, it makes Sara well suited to teams with several characters that deal damage in a short window. There weren't many of them back in 2.1, but there are now. Quick disclaimer, while a lot of this footage uses Raiden, if you don't have her, Keqing actually benefits a lot from Sara because of the short DPS windows. You can just use her instead. So day 1, people would play Raiden, Sara, Kazuha and Bennett in a Raiden hypercarry team. Kazuha, along with Viridus and Venera, benefits both Raiden and Sara. Sara's high burst cost gives Raiden more resolve stacks. Raiden charges Sara's high burst cost up to cover that weakness. And both Sara and Bennett giving Raiden attack means Raiden's dealing a lot of damage. Even more so with Sara's C6. There was even the option for a second team where you swap out Kazuha for Xiangling and it goes from being a hypercarry team to being an overloaded team. Some people even went with electro-charged teams. They'd run Sara to buff one of Beidou Official, then a Hydro unit, Child for example, and a sustain unit like Bennett, Jean or Zhongli. While the Raiden hypercarry and overloaded teams were okay at the time, I feel like the electro-charged one was copium. And even the first two weren't the strongest teams in the game. So how have new units improved her? Let's look at it chronologically. 2.5 saw the release of Yaimiko, which gave Sara another strong electro unit to buff. Unfortunately though, the two weren't great outside of Raiden teams because of the high burst costs. This mono electro team was similar to the Raiden hypercarry team, but honestly, Kazuha was given more to the team than Yai. Sara's first big buff was Sumeru and the introduction of the Dendro element. 3.0 gave us 3 Dendro units for Sara to work with: Tignari, Kale and Dendro MC. Tignari benefited from Sara because he wants both Elemental Mastery and Attack. With there being limited ways to give the team Elemental Mastery at the time, Sara's attack buff meant Tignari could go with Elemental Mastery Sans. Her being Electro meant Tignari had access to Spread for more damage, but Sara also had access to Aggravate for more damage herself. If your Sara has Elegy for the end, Tignari benefits even more from her. Kale and Dendro MC acted as nice flexes in Raiden Sara teams, and they even provide their own buffs. Kale's C4 gives Elemental Mastery and Dendro MC's passive does the same, as well as the C6 increasing the on-field character's electro damage. Nahida came out in 3.1 and this was a big one because she provided the on-field character with a massive Elemental Mastery buff, as well as some AoE Dendro damage. This made her an even better flex than Kale and Dendro MC, but in a lot of AoE situations you'd prefer Nahida over Kazuha. It's not out of the question to run both. Dropping Bennett means you could give Nahida Prototype Amber. This would mean Nahida's essentially your healer, although it will be less comfy. 3.4 gave us Alhaitham, and even though a lot of people prefer him in Hyper Bloom, Sara in a Quicken team is a nice alternative for those bored of running the same teams. If you have a C6, then throwing in another Electro character for it to buff like Yai, Fischl or Beidou made for a decent team. The Dendro Sustain units released throughout Sumeru enable even more Quicken teams. Yao Yao was the first, releasing in 3.4, and given a 4-piece instructor is going to give the team Elemental Mastery to buff their damage. She's available for free in Lantern Rite and works well at C0. Baiju's going to be even comfier, providing big healing and a shield that refreshes for resistance to interruption. His passive also increases the damage bonus provided by Aggravate, which benefits Sara's damage. Karara's the other Dendro Sustain unit. We all just got her for free in 4.8. She can also hold 4-piece Instructor, 4-piece Noblesse if you want to give the team more attack, or 4-piece Deepwood if you have a Dendro DPS in the team. If you have Karara's C6, she's going to give 12% elemental damage to the team too, which is nice. 3.5 saw the release of Dia. I've done a bunch of videos recently trying to show some of Dia's value. If you haven't seen any of them, punch yourself in the face. My most recent one showed a team where the idea is to yo-yo between Dia and Raiden as DPSs in short windows. Sara has value here because she can buff Dia's attack with a skill, then pop a burst when Dia's done to give the attack buff and C6 buff to Raiden. I'd argue that this is where most of Sara's potential lies. Unfortunately, there aren't too many characters with short enough DPS windows to do this. Chevreuse being the other unit in the team following a release in 4.3 gives the team a lot of benefits. Firstly, she reduces the pyro and electro resistance of enemies by 40%, which benefits everyone. Next, she gives attack from a passive, which, along with Sara's attack buff and the attack buff from a pyro resonance, makes Bennett's absence a non-issue. She can also heal a little, which along with Dia's mitigation means you don't need a dedicated sustain unit. Her C1 gives more energy, which is appreciated because everyone here has a high burst cost. Her C6 gives more elemental damage to the on-field unit. Finally, her damage, like Sara's, isn't negligible. To those sick of running the same Bennett, Xiangling, Fischl, Xingqiu and Kazuha teams, this seems a lot of fun. Navia also came out in 4.3, and as I was talking about with the last team, she's another of a limited pool of characters that can deal their damage in a short window. As of right now, Raiden, Sara, Navia is a solid core, then add one of Bennett's for attack or Zhongli for resistance, shred and geo-resonance. Xilonen, when she comes out in 5.1, can take the team to the next level too. She can hold Favonius Sword for more energy for the team, she'll shred the opponent's geo and electro resistance, and can make full use of the Cinder City 4-piece, giving 40% geo and electro damage to the team. 4.7 gave us Clorand, who can heal herself, so the team isn't in desperate need of a sustain unit. This will allow you to bulk up on supports and off-field units like Fischl, Sara and Nahida. You could even go the overloaded route of Clorand, Sara, Chevreuse and Xiangling. This team's going to be energy hungry though, so I still think Fischl's going to be better than Sara here. Cephos also came out in 4.7, and even though he's not the strongest DPS in the game, he does have a loyal fan base. Going with Fischl for energy, Sara to buff a pair of them, and then Karara if you have a C6 or Baizhu instead, is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so we've looked at how she's been buffed since her release, and along the way we've looked at her teams. Now let's look at how you should build her. For a weapon, there are two routes you can go, damage or energy. First, bear in mind you want weapons with a high base attack because her attack buff only scales off her base attack, not her overall attack. Going with a weapon with an attack secondary stat doesn't do anything for a buff. So if you're going for energy recharge on a weapon, Sacrificial Bow is going to be better than Favonius Warbow. Fading Twilight's nice for energy as well as her damage, and the 565 base attack helps her buff. Unfortunately, it was only available from an event and is gone now. Elegy for the End is a best energy recharge weapon though, with a 608 base attack, 55 energy recharge, and the passive gives the team 100 elemental mastery and 20% attack. If you have enough energy recharge and her artifacts, her damage weapons are decent. I'll start with the best free-to-play option, then we'll look at the 5 stars and the rest of the 4 stars. The Natlan Craftable Chainbreaker gives 565 base attack, which is solid for a buff, and the secondary stats attack, which benefits her personal damage. The passive's restrictive though. For every Natlan unit in the team with a different element to her, she gets 9.6% attack at R5. Realistically, it's only going to be Xilonen for now though. Looking at the other weapons, Skyward Harp has 674 base attack, which is currently the highest base attack for a bow, and it also gives 22% crit rate and 20% crit crit damage. Polar Star is arguably a best damage weapon. Even though the 608 base attack's lower, it's still better than the 4-star options, and the 33% crit rate makes building crit easier. The passive increases the skill and burst damage as well as giving up to 40% attack, but to get the full attack buff you need to do a normal attack, charge attack, skill and burst. Doing all this will extend your rotation time, so keep that in mind. Her best 4-star damage weapons would be Moon's Moon, Ally Hunter and Range Gauge for the high base attack and big buffs to her personal damage. The thing is though, you'd want refinements, and as gacha weapons they're difficult to obtain. Her artifacts are simple. 4-piece emblem allows for more damage, and the 20% energy recharge makes it easier to get a burst back. 4-piece Noblesse buffs the team's attack if you don't already have a holder. 4-piece Cinder City buffs the team's elemental damage for electro and whichever element she reacts with. It's useful in overloaded and quicken teams, but I say just go with emblem. It's in the strong box and a lot of other characters hold it. Overall, I wasn't a big fan of Sara when she released, and I didn't fully enjoy playing her until I got a C6. Now I have it, I'm finding she's actually a lot of fun. While she isn't a top tier unit, she isn't far off in a niche, she just isn't as flexible as alternative units. I dropped a video a few days ago showing her off in a Raiden and Dia team in floor 12, and I'm going to be dropping Kenichi videos soon too. Subscribe if you're interested in them, and take it easy.